Ships from afar risked the Cape of Storms to explore South Africa. And found not only diamonds and gold, but other hidden treasures, such as the Gardenroute. Situated in the Westerncape province, this special section of coastline stretches from the magnificent forests of Tenikwa to the picturesque town of Swellendam. The Gardenroute, nestling between mountains and the sparkling blue of the Indian Ocean, is one of the fastest developing coastlines in South Africa because of its beauty and many activities and attractions. Unfortunately, the rapid urbanization of the Gardenroute has led to unprecedented strain on the populations of wild animals, which share the spectacular scenery with the thousands of tourists and residents who flock to the area to enjoy its natural splendor. Tenikwa is a wildlife awareness centre based in the Western Cape of South Africa.
Tenikwa is a name that we've chosen, and we use that phrase and we say that we speak for the animals that live in the shadows of the mountains, of the Tenikwa Mountains.
Auf vielen Wappen und Signalen zu sehen.
Tenikwa. Very good flyers, but their wings are clipped because they are here for the conservation.
Thank you very much. And what is your name?
My name is Joe.
Hello, hi Joe. How are you today?
I'm very fine, and yourself?
Yeah, and myself is I'm so happy to stay at your place here and to be a very good tourist with my big camera.
Pleasure's mine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Many people visit South Africa to see the big cats, lion, leopard and cheetah. So why is it so uncommon to see these animals in the wild? And what of the lesser cats of Africa, of whom people know little of? Tenikwa was opened to the public in August 2007. Before that, the centre was closed to visitors and concentrated purely on rehabilitation. The centre is now open 7 days a week, 365 days of the year, and welcomes guests from all over the world, as well as encouraging local communities to learn more about South African wildlife. A visit to Tenikwa will introduce you to some fascinating creatures, like the comical pair of marabou storks, Earl and Edwina, who will curiously tug at any camera strap dangling from your shoulder. The centre also has a meerkat meander, where you can see the busy little meerkats at work shaping their world. several hundred indigenous ducks visit Tenikwa's 11 dams on a daily basis. Originally an established rehabilitation centre for sick and injured wildlife, Len and Mandy Freeman, owners of Tenikwa, realised the urgent need for education and awareness of many of the species indigenous to the area. This rehabilitation centre is open 24 hours a day for the community and local authorities to bring injured wildlife for treatment. The rehabilitation centre of Tenikwa is not open to the public, and animals under rehabilitation are housed separately. This reduces their stress levels and increases their chance of a successful release. The centre receives no government funding and is dependent on gate takings and public support to fund the ongoing cost of rehabilitation.
When we started Tenikwa, we were doing pure rehabilitation. And we very quickly realized that with rehabilitating animals, it's a very important aspect to conservation, but you're saving individual animals and not many of them. With a facility that raises awareness, you can have an impact on whole species. And that's why we shifted our focus to balance between rehabilitation on the one side and awareness, which has far greater impact for the whole habitat and the protection of many species within the food chain.
The cheetahs at Tenikwa often make the biggest impacts on people. Firstly, visitors have the opportunity to accompany them on their daily walks and so learn more about these endangered creatures. Another reason is the sheer power of the cheetah and how surprisingly calm and gentle they can be for a predator of their size, weighing up to 60 kilograms. Tenikwa uses a charismatic cheetah as a draw card to introduce visitors to the lesser-known indigenous cats.
Cheetahs are threatened in the wild due to genetic problems. Also, in the old days, many cheetahs were shot out due to, once again, predator management. Farmers indiscriminately went out and shot many cheetahs. The other thing that has happened is that a lot of the food source of cheetahs has been reduced. Chester, our first cheetah, roughly in November last year, got very ill. We thought he just had a bacterial infection, and so we gave him some antibiotics. The antibiotics never responded. We then discovered that he had acute pancreatitis, and in fact would also not respond to medication. We then decided to operate on him and discovered that the pancreas was almost entirely necrotic, and it was a tough decision to go through, but we anticipated that we would have to put him down. Today we've rehabilitated him. Alright, this is Chester. Chester's on insulin, and he gets 0.6 of a mole of insulin every single day with his meal. You've got to have the insulin with the food, and he will be on insulin for the rest of his life. He's a diabetic. I've just got to give it to him quickly before he finishes his food, otherwise he's going to get up and walk off. Here we go.
Although Chester's case of diabetes is uncommon, the species are generally very susceptible to illnesses due to the level of inbreeding that occurs. Cheetahs once roamed all over Africa, but now, with only an average of 7,000 left, and the majority residing in Namibia, their extinction in the wild is anticipated within the next few decades. The remaining cheetahs of South Africa tend to occur on farmlands, not a surprise when much of South Africa veldt has been cultivated for agricultural use. For a cheetah, as with many predators, livestock makes easy prey, and this has led to a significant reduction in the number of wild cheetah. Farmers are now playing one of the most important roles when it comes to the conservation of this species. There is also the major problem of gene stagnation, which is contributing to the problems of inbreeding, very common within cheetah populations. Game reserves initially seem a good idea for conserving species, but in the longer term are not a sustainable solution unless the flow of genes to other populations is allowed. Unless there are corridors interlinking these reserves and parks, genetic problems will persist, and already the cheetah is genetically unstable in much of its previous range. Chances of survival in the wild for cheetahs is very slim, not just as a result of man, but also other predators such as lion and hyena. Built for speed, these creatures lack strength, and chances are that usually 1 in 10 cubs will make it to 3 months old. Inbreeding has caused the cheetah's jaws to be weak and immunity systems even weaker. Many predators will kill a defenseless cheetah cub if it finds one, and often attack adult cheetahs encroaching on their territory or competing for their food. Injury will mean certain death to a mother and her cubs, and so she often flees the scene of an attack, leaving her cubs behind. With a gestation period of just 80 days, she will be able to reproduce once again. For cubs like Chaka and Tundi at Tenikwa, life in the wild would be very dangerous. Just 6 months old, these cubs get a lot of attention from visitors and are used to emphasize the plight of cheetah in the wild.
At Tenikwa we use a different approach to other facilities in that we work a lot with children. And what we like to do with children is get them into the natural environment of the animal that we're discussing. So for example, in this kind of habitat it would be a serval who lives in a wetland. And the reason we do that is we try to teach people, and especially children, that it's no good trying to preserve one individual species without trying to preserve the whole habitat. So that is why we rather get the children inside the enclosure, walk around in natural habitat, rather than take, for example, a cheetah to a school where it's one animal in a very foreign environment. The other thing what we have found is that many children in South Africa have not had the fortune to be brought up with loving parents who actually teach their children how to be gentle with animals. And so we have to start really at grassroots level to instill a love of animals and an absolute empathy towards the animals. And that's quite a difficult thing to do when you're dealing with poverty and you're dealing with high levels of child abuse and things like that. So repetition is what helps here. We bring children again and again and again, and every time the child comes through here we see an improvement. First, they're overwhelmed by the facility and the first world class what they're seeing. The next time they're associating a little bit with the animals, and eventually they know the name of the animal, and it's at that point that your child starts to see that there's a character behind the animal. It's not just something that is there to eat or to kick.
Cheetahs reach their full speed in the most desperate of situations, avoiding danger or catching prey. Apart from this, they spend up to 17 hours a day languishing in the shade. Tenikwa cheetahs are always game for a bit of soccer. They enjoy a run and play around, and they are often taken out regularly for daily enrichment.
Handy. Here, Shaka. Shaka. Shaka, shaka, shaka. Okay, the cheetah cubs are still being given milk here. In the wild they would have been weaned, but the way we raise our cubs here is that we let them define the pace at which they would like to be weaned, and it also helps us to give them sufficient calcium because they are still growing for a good 18 months. So this Espalac that we're feeding them has added calcium, which is great for their bone structures. Because at Tenikwa we not only have to look at their food and their nutritional requirements, we have to look at psychological, environment, physical requirements as well. So they get 2 bottles a day. No fingers.
Cheetahs are capable of running up to speeds of 120 kilometers per hour, but only in short bursts of about 20 seconds. The cheetah was designed for speed, with its springy spine, long muscular tail, oversized organs, large nasal passage, and tear marks. The tear marks help deflect the sunlight from the eyes, as a cat is a daylight hunter. Unlike other cats, they have non-retractable claws. They also cannot roar like their larger counterparts, the leopard and lion. Instead, they communicate with one another with a large vocabulary of sounds. This disguises them from attracting an unwanted attention from other predators. Any encounter with predators can be fatal, which is why the cheetah eats as much as it can, as quickly as it can.
We've walked our cheetah since they were very young. We started with Chester and Zimbali, and what we like to do, they are in large enclosures, but even so we like to take the animals out every day. This would be natural behavior that we're mimicking here. A mother cheetah would take her cubs out into the territory, show them where the dangers are, show them where to hunt, show them things that they're unfamiliar with, how to climb trees, where to hide, just smells basically of the bush. And so we do the same with our cheetahs. From very little we take them walking, and the cheetahs actually love this. It's a wonderful time for them to be out. They lie around, they climb trees, they smell in the bush, they roll in the leaves, and we found from an animal enrichment point of view, it's just the highlight of their day.
So what can be done to help the remaining populations of these most incredible creatures?
So snakes are venomous, so when they catch, they'll eat it, no problem. Unless if they have got some sores on their throat, so venom will go through the sores. Okay, okay, that's it. Because if you say they're playing, you play back.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful animal. They're very beautiful cats, eh?
Mm.
Yeah, very gorgeous. Ja, no problem. No problem.
Ich will jetzt nur für Filme.
Steht, muss gehen. Das ist der einzige Grund, warum sie schnell gemacht haben. Dann machen wir nochmal.
Other cases where animals feed off things like guinea fowl and other kinds of fowl and bird, all of those would be eradicated by the farmers in different ways. They could be shot for food by the workers and the farmer. They could be poisoned because those birds, for instance, would be eating the crops and the seed as the farmer plants. And it's a holistic thing where there's not enough food out there, and the predators then come for the livestock. And what farmers should also do is think about propagating natural food, getting back into the indigenous scenario, propagating food for predators, and rather living with the predators than eradicating. The trap is a piece of pretty tough metal. It has a spring. These two jaws are opened up. The jaws would then close over the leg of the animal. You can see from the teeth inside here that by the time that closes and those teeth close in on the bone and the flesh, that is practically the end of the leg of the animal. This hook here is a device which is designed because the animal now is going to take this and is going to drag this, and eventually this is going to hook. This is a grappling hook. This hook is going to actually hook up against the branch of a tree and stop the animal getting away. And that allows the farmer to come back, if at all, and either kill the animal or to find the animal dead from starvation and thirst.
The device that we have here, this is also a lethal method of predator control. You fill these pouches with poison. So when the predator comes forward to the sheep, this collar is strapped around the lambs or the sheep, and the predator bites on it. Arsenic or poison is expelled and the predator dies. Now, the one thing about this trap is that, or this control, is that it is selective. It is going to target the animal that is doing the problem. but it's not an ethical method either because the animal dies a terrible death from strychnine poisoning. Some of the better methods, and I don't have them all here, we have a bell collar. This goes around the sheep's neck and it makes a noise. So when there is a predator nearby, it either alerts the guard or the guarding dog or the farmer itself. So he can wake up, go out there and check what is causing the problem. So it's a very practical, cheap device that sells for a very small amount of money. We also have here a king collar. Now the king collar costs less than 10 rand per collar, and this fits around the neck of the sheep. And can you see, as we move into non-lethal methods of predator management, our focus is changing from the predator to the livestock. So we are managing the livestock now. These collars go around the lamb, and so when the predator bites, he can't get to the throat to inflict the mortal injury. Now, some predators do adapt to these, and they would need to be used in conjunction with other methods. But there is definitely a good chance that you're going to reduce your predator problems with using this kind of device. Okay. The other thing that's very interesting, and this is a book issued by the Landmark Foundation, and it's given free of charge to farmers. And the most important thing that I feel is about this book is it gives the farmers information about the various wounds that predators inflict. So if you have a predator problem on your farm, you are able to identify what predator is causing the damage. And what we see with leopard is a complete retaliation for predator problems. If a lamb is taken, if there is a leopard in the vicinity, he is targeted, whether he's the animal that caused the damage. So this book gives a lot of information about where the biting occurs, what to look out for, and gives information on where to obtain some of these devices from.
The most important thing to realize is that the solution lies in the hand of every single person that buys the produce coming off these farms. We believe that once the Fair Game logo is available, there is a ready answer in how people can contribute to the cause. Buy the products that are certified wildlife friendly. Secondly, we believe individuals can get involved in a campaign by which we put pressure on the state officials to change legislation to ban outright the methods that we advocate against: gin traps, poisons, hunting dogs, denning, helicopter hunting. So I do believe there is a role for every single individual to play in this whole campaign.
One of the debatable issues out there is whether taking out the predators in numbers is a good idea. And it has become very, very obvious that taking out the top male, the alpha male, off a pack of perhaps jackal or perhaps a baboon is not the right thing to do, because this then allows all the younger males to come in and interfere with the whole pack, creating dissension amongst each other. And this is a major, major problem. So what the farmer normally does is he picks the alpha males and he takes them out because they're the ones that come forward to protect their flock or whatever they have, and at the end of the day creating havoc amongst the youngsters. The whole idea is to create that main matriarch male, allow him to actually manage his pack, and then you will keep away the younger herds, and at the end of the day you will have less predators. And this is also prevalent in things like porcupine, where they go in and they kill the porcupine in numbers. It allows other porcupine to come in because they're territorial. And the same with the caracal. The caracal are actually solitary, and a male caracal will patrol up to 20-30 kilometers of terrain himself and keep out all the other males. By killing that main matriarch male is not a good idea, because all you're going to do is create dissension once again amongst the youngsters. So there needs to be more education behind what does get eradicated if it has to happen, and how it's done, and more planning instead of going out there and just removing everything out of the wild.
Guarding is one of the best methods of predator control and has the bonus of being ethical. The Anatolian shepherd dog, also an ambassador animal, Tenikwa, has proven highly successful for many farmers. The large size allows intimidation of the predator, and his protective nature allowing guarding of up to 2,000 sheep per dog. Other guards can include ostrich, donkey, and alpacas, a llama-type creature, all of which require no additional feeding as they live with the livestock. Alpacas have the extra benefit of providing an income as their wool is very popular on the market. Guarding has not only proven useful against the tearing cheetah, but also leopard and caracal, labelled as two of the most persecuted animals in southern Africa. The caracal is involved in the age-old hate battle with farmers across Africa because it will often kill more than it can consume, and wastefulness is intolerable to a livestock farmer. The caracal is shot as a result in a determined effort to eradicate the species in farming areas. As a result, numbers in the wild are decreasing, and although the caracal is not confirmed as endangered, it is without doubt in decline in many areas of Africa.
With our awareness program, we're not trying to say to farmers that they have no right to protect their sheep. It is a commercial setup and we understand that, so farmers have every right to protect their livestock and their livelihood. But what we are saying is that there are ethical and non-ethical ways, and if you have non-lethal methods available to you, at least try them out. If it's not working, then we need to work at a more severe way of trying to target the specific animal that is causing the problem. So with our awareness program, we give a variety of solutions and try to make the farmers aware what's causing the livestock predation in the beginning. This is an example of misguided kindness when it comes to wildlife. This animal here was found as a youngster by a family, taken into the home, raised like a domestic cat. He lived with them for nearly a year, and then he went on to lounge on the counter of a bar in a hotel. And this was all very great for business, but for the cat itself, you are not teaching him any skills to be able to fend for himself in the wild. And wild animals belong in the wild. They don't belong on bar counters in hotels. You can see he has a collar on and he's completely imprinted. So when caracals reach about a year of age and they start hissing, they're not such desirable pets anymore. Suddenly it's a very convenient place, Tenikwa, to be the drop-off point for this unwanted animal that's actually become a bit scary. So now we sit with an animal that's imprinted. His chances of going back in the wild are completely taken away from him by people who thought they were doing the right thing by rescuing him. As a cub, he would probably have been better off being shot along with his mother, because he has no chance of going in the wild. He can probably fend for himself, but the first person he sees he'll associate with food. He'll run up to that person and get shot. So if you do come across a wild animal, do the animal a favor and do the right thing. Bring it to a proper rehabilitation center whose purpose is to get the animals back into the wild.
The message Tenikwa wants to send is that wild animals belong in the wild, and unfortunately, because of this persecution, it is all too often that caracal are brought into the rehabilitation center, injured, sick, or orphaned.
We get in a large amount of caracal youngsters at Tenikwa Wildlife Awareness Center. By the time we get them, they're normally at least 6 months old. And this is the time now when the caracal becomes a little bit stroppy and starts to interact with the people that have actually brought the caracal in. Most of the caracal have come in or have been brought in by people who have shot either the mom or the dad or both out on a farm, and then this little cuddly youngster has been taken home in the hope that they can tame it and it can become a pet. And it's become a big problem at Tenikwa Wildlife Awareness Center to integrate caracal like that, because they are very, very human imprinted, and it takes a long, long time, and we normally have to keep them here for at least 6 months and then slowly orientate them back into the wild using another captive area where they're going to be released. So the cost factor is very, very large to actually integrate.
The biggest challenge that we have when we rehabilitate wild animals is to stop them becoming used to humans. What we find often, we get animals when it's too late. Someone will get a baby caracal, for example. It's very cute, so they keep it in the house and they tame it like a domestic animal. Once it becomes a year old, it starts to hiss and slap. It's not so cute anymore, and then it lands up at Tenikwa. Now, an animal like that is very difficult to rehabilitate and get back in the wild. It has completely no fear of humans, so the first thing it's going to do is associate humans with food. The minute it gets to a farm, it will be shot. So our biggest challenge here is to get the animal well in a stress-free environment, but still to retain its fear of humans. And we do that through minimum handling, and we also try and make the environment as natural as possible for the animal. Sometimes that's completely impractical. When you have, for example, a caracal that's 5 days old, you have to bottle feed it, you have to handle it. But there's a difference in raising an animal for a captive environment and raising it to be able to go back in the wild and completely adapt to an area, and an area where it needs to be hidden away from humans and actually stay completely away from civilization.
A devastating incident at Tenikwa involved a caracal known as Frodo. Brought in as an orphan cub, he was nursed back to health and re-released into the wild. Just 1 week later, Frodo was shot dead by a farmer, despite the fact that he was wearing a highly visible tracking collar.
We decided to do with Frodo, who was shot 7 days after release. We discovered that the area wasn't prime, and we were also misinformed by authorities as to where to release the caracal. What we're doing now is we are rather working with large game farms where the animals go back into an enclosure similar to the one that we have at Tenikwa, and thereafter, over a period of perhaps even extended further than 1.5 to 2 years, the animal can then not necessarily be kept in an enclosure, but use the enclosure as comfort, especially at night time when it can be fed, until it can learn to go back into the wild on its own.
As far as legislation currently is concerned, is the state in all provinces except the Western Cape allows a farmer to use all of these indiscriminate methods against damage-causing animals. It changes from province to province, the process, but it's essentially the same in all of them. Even in the Western Cape, you can use gin traps with a permit, and hunting dogs and poisons. So what we want to see is that we get national legislation that prohibits these methods. Not just restrict them, but prohibits them. In other words, ban them outright.
Rarely seen in the wild, visitors have the opportunity to meet some of the caracals up close. The guides use this opportunity to tell visitors of the non-lethal methods of predator control and to question the accepted practices and customs upheld today. Another highly controversial animal is the leopard, the newest addition to Tenikwa. This little leopard cub, known as Zwelaki, is 7 months old. Zwelaki in Xhosa means in his world. Again, a plea to mankind to be more tolerant of these magnificent creatures.
The leopard is an animal which is far more adaptable to the cheetah. The leopard has very, very cunning hunting techniques. It will stalk its prey very, very slowly, and it will pounce on it, and can also hunt at very close quarters. Whereas the cheetah has to come in at an angle, and normally on flat plains, and find its prey, and it has to be a far more dynamic in its hunting practice. So the leopard is far more adaptable. It can also live in amongst humans without humans even knowing that it's present. It's very important for Tenikwa to get this leopard, because leopard occur naturally in the environment around Tenikwa and in the Plettenberg Bay area. Once again, stimulating interest in the leopard so that the leopard can't